So today we're going to be looking at birds, and when we are younger maybe we were taught to draw a bird like with the head and the body, and then maybe a triangle, two circles, triangle for a beak, and maybe a triangle for a tail, or a square for a tail, and the legs. Okay, so we recognise that as a bird for a very good reason, that basically these are the components for every bird species. We're going to be looking at a few different species, and what changes is the relationship between the size of the head and the body, the position of the head in relationship to the body, the shape and length of the beak, so that triangle changes with different species, and the shape and position of the tail changes with different species. But essentially we are going to be drawing our birds like this, and so if we've been learning this technique since we were younger, hopefully today's session will be nice and easy for everyone to do. Okay, let's get started. So if we're looking at a robin, we can see that his body is like a big sort of a round circle, and I'm just going from the reference image here, and the head is sort of a smaller circle, and in this image it's kind of near the top of the bigger circle. And just looking at proportions, it's kind of looking like that nice big round chest, and then here is where we join them up, so this becomes the front of our head. Oh, don't forget our beak. So the beak and the eye, so another circle for the eye. It's quite large comparative to the head, and our beak is probably about the same distance again. And on the robin we've got a sort of a small beak but long, and it has a slight curve at the top, so I'm going to give it that slight curve to start with. And it's got a slight curve underneath, I didn't realise. So it's a narrow triangle with a slight curve. Now we take the line across its head, down its back, around its big tummy, thicken up that line. Now we come to what happens at the tail. The robin's tail in our image is kind of nearly 45 degrees, but not quite. So we're just going to give it a long rectangle and then join it into the body. Okay, so it kind of has that long rectangle and then joined into the body. Okay, so now I can take out these preliminary circles and look whether we have the shape that we want. To do that, I'm going to grab my rubber and get rid of these inside lines. Is this starting to look like a robin? I think it might be, you know. So we've got our thick lines describing the shape of our robin. They've all come from the two circles. Now, inside the circles, inside our shape, we've got some other shaping of the colouring. I'm just going to move the eye across as we go along, as always, completely reflecting at each stage. So I've reflected on that, and I've realised that the shape of the chin doesn't come in so much here, so I'm going to just level that off to make it more like the picture. I can keep going with my lines until I get the one I want. There's the one I want on the outside. Okay, so it's a little bit straighter here and a little bit more rounded there. And the eye was a little bit smaller than the picture I'm copying, so I've gone and made that a little bit bigger. Here we follow the line of where the red runs. Red runs in feathers, so kind of a zigzaggy line. And to give me a guide, I always use sort of just a little tip tap of the pencil to give that kind of feathery, organic kind of look. Lots of little strokes of the pencil. And I think that's going to give us our kind of red area. It's all here. Maybe a little bit further back here, but I'll just draw that in. And then we have a grey area. Again, I'm just going to use the few little bits of feathers there. And then the grey area kind of all blends into the white. So underneath here is a lot of white. And then here, the bit that I'm trying to get to is the shape of the wing. And we're going to do a little bit on top of there, and when we do the wing, we just do these lovely feather patterns. I've always loved drawing feather patterns. Feather, 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 feather. And then on this particular reference image, it kind of only has those, and that becomes that. And then it's got the really long tail feather that comes in here, and then maybe another one, and the last one there. And then last but not least, we're going to give it its legs. Now the legs are usually a lot longer than you think they're going to be when we're drawing birds. So just use your judgment. Stick those long legs in. And then they always have like a knobbly bit before the talon, well, I don't suppose the talons on a robin, before the little feet come off. And I just draw little sticks for the feet to make sure I've got the positions right before I go ahead and fill in the details. Rounded claws, something like that. Okay. So when I come to really do the detail on the claws, I have to obviously draw a little indication of the shape of what the robin is standing on, which is a little, I'm just going to kind of make it like this. And what do I need to do? I need to start, there's no real tricks here, it's just kind of looking and looking some more. So I feel like this talon has always got a little lump there. This one has a what I call a knuckle. Then it goes long and thin again, and then they have another knuckle, and then they have their little claw, which looks quite big on the page, but if you imagine a robin in real life, that tiny little claw, it's very cute. Not so cute if you're some sort of spider, I guess, but who knows. And then we just kind of draw the legs, how they join onto the talon, I keep calling them talons, onto the feet. So we do round our bobble, expand out, And these are kind of rounded like this into the claw. We take that back up, and then this one runs along the rock top, knuckles, and that claw goes out there, and give it a little bit of shaping. Okay, so I think that's starting to look like a robin. One of the things about a robin is the colouring. I mean, what makes a robin is that lovely bright red breast. So if we have got some colours to fill in here, that is the best thing to do. But if you haven't, we can still add some details to it that gives it that robin-y feel. Now, I'm just going to lighten this eye up a bit so we can pay it a bit more attention. I'm going to draw that back in, slightly more oval, because I've had another look at the reference image and it's definitely more oval than I'd made it. Then around every bird's eye they have these tiny little bubbles, so I try and give a little bit of texture around the edges to indicate the bubbles, and then to give that eye that kind of definition where the light's shining on it. We go very dark, and leave the light bits where the light is. I think I'm going to change my pencil from, I'm using a HB, which I never use. I'm going to use 2B to give me that real dark, beady robin's eye. So just filling in a little bit more darkness in that eye area, and we're going to give the beak a little shine too. So we've got that darkness underneath, and then on top we've got a lovely bright shiny bit. So make sure that does come up nice and bright. And then we can shade in the rest. It's got a little triangle here, and then it kind of shades a little bit here, and we've got that shiny top. Okay, and then for the rest, just using your pencil, use a shading technique. Now, how can I give you tips on shading? I kind of just, especially when I'm doing wildlife, use short little strokes. These short little strokes of the pencil really create a kind of softer, feathery or furry kind of look. So I never use really heavy shading to begin with. I start off nice and light and then build it up gradually over time. So just keep looking at your reference image. Where are the dark patches and where are the light patches? And then fill it in gradually as you go. Little strokes, giving a little bit of texture in all the different areas. There's definitely some dark patches at the end of these feathers, and so on. Try and do the stroke in the direction of the feathers. So if the feathers under the chin are coming this way, then I do the stroke coming that way. I'm not going to fill in the red area because I am going to use some red. I'm just going to do these dark bits under here, just a little bit texture, give it that shading. Where's he got a dark bit? There's definitely some dark patchings here in a sort of a triangle shape there, leading into the tail. Keep reflecting, keep redrawing what you're not happy with, just build up dark and light areas. Love these sort of feathery textures. For nature and that kind of organic-y kind of texture I was talking about, I think you get a lot of control with a pencil. So for my colour, I'm also going to stick with pencil, and I'm going to use a red watercolour pencil, but you can use paint, you can use anything you like. So I'm going to get that ready right now. Okay, so I've pulled out some colours for my robin's red breast. Now when I've reflected on the reference image, it isn't really that red, it's more of an orangey colour. So I've pulled out 3 colours, a nice warm orangey, not a bright lemony yellow, but a nice warm orangey yellow, a mid-orange, and a really orangey red. So I think those are going to be the colours that I'll use to create the texture of his robin red breast. Let's see. Starting with highlights, yellow. Always starting with the highlights and building up colour. Let's create a nice white base for this to show up properly. Let's get rid of that really thick, heavy line that I created and see what happens now. So there's a really rather light section you'll be able to see at the top of as it curves round, the red breast curves round, and you can already see that the texture, just the short sharp use of the pencil, those short lines create a texture in their own way, kind of that feathery kind of look. Bit of bright there, there's a little bit of bright under its eye. Where else have we got bright? A little bit here. Can't put too much bright on because we can always go over the bright. So I'm going to just go crazy with it, put it everywhere that I think it might show up underneath later on. And not so much in these underneath areas, but definitely on these top bits here. Okay, feathering backwards and forwards, keep going with it like that. Then I'm going to go for the mid-orange and build up that colour again. So go a bit mid here, take it right up to the edge, but make this line kind of a fuzzy kind of a line again. And we can fill in all these gaps. It does take a while, just keep looking. We've got plenty of time. So just build up the colour slowly. Plenty of time to look and think about where we're going to put the colour. Sometimes I think I should practice these things before I start a tutorial because you don't always know how they're going to turn out. Well, we'll find out together. And again, I'm using the direction of the stroke to follow the direction of the feathers that I can see on our reference image. When the feathers a little shorter, put a little shorter strokes in, building up the colour. Long strokes, short strokes, building it up gradually. Not sure it's looking entirely like our reference image, but again, a lot of the fun is just in the process of trying. And never worry that it doesn't end up how I expect it to end up. I always just, give it a go. At least I've had fun. At least I've been occupied. Let my mind rest the whole time that I'm doing it. Okay, so then I'm going to put the lowlights in, which we definitely have all underneath here. This is going to be a bit darker, starting to go for a more reddy colour, and potentially kind of a browny colour here. This kind of goes a reddy brown, which I might add in once I've reflected on what this is going to look like. I'm going to go back to my pencil and get these darker areas blended in. Now we definitely know this is a robin now, for sure. So the next thing I'm going to dress is this lovely bluey grey colours we get around the robin. Leaving this bit white, a kind of blue grey around these edges. So I've picked a sort of a medium muted kind of a blue, and let's see if we can make that look like a little bit like feathering. Again, I'm just going to use some short, sharp colouring. Got a little bit on his head there. The way it mixes in with the graphite pencil is exactly the type of effect that we want to get. Got a lovely bit of blue around here. Kind of bright bits here. So it just lifts the grey a little bit. Add a little bit more grey pencil if you'd like to keep that tone. Okay, starting to get there. So for the feather effect, we've got some sort of yellowy feathers, and I've got a dark brown, that those are tonally kind of in line with each other, and again some more blending with our graphite grey pencil. So the most yellow we've got is around here, just some very light touches. We're going to keep mostly the grey graphite, with really just adding a touch of colour into there, and maybe there's a touch of colour here across the top of the wing, and a little bit maybe in the tail feather, and then the rest here is very brown and very grey. Now I feel like the brown I've chosen is a little bit red, too red for what I want to do here. But I'm going to persevere with it because I'm going to take some of that redness out with the grey graphite pencil. And work back into it with the grey graphite pencil. Take some of that redness out. And you know what? I think I'm going to leave that like that.